Do not touch me. That was the warning I gave the giant blocking the emergency exit of the club. He smiled like he owned the floor, like I was furniture, like I would move because he existed. So I didn't step around him. I grabbed his designer lapels and drove my forehead into his face. The sound was wrong, wet. Dense. Final. Pain detonated behind my eyes. Music cut. Every shifter in the building dropped to their knees. That's when I realized. I hadn't just headbutted a man. I had broken the face of Alpha Sovereign Kale Draven, the ruler of every dominant pack on the continent. I waited to die. Instead, he touched the blood on his mouth, licked it slowly from his thumb, and smiled at me like I had just awakened something feral. Finally, he said. Then he stepped closer. Someone who doesn't kneel. Welcome to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Before we dive in, I'd love your support. Kindly hit the likes button and let the story hit 200 likes. Also, subscribe, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Your engagement means the world to me. Now let's begin. I didn't just hit him. I tried to end him. That was the intent, anyway. When a man twice my size plants himself in front of a staff exit after midnight, breath thick with liquor and entitlement, you don't negotiate. You survive. So I launched myself forward. The impact was violent enough that white light burst across my vision. Cartilage gave with a sickening crunch that vibrated up my skull and into my teeth. I tasted copper immediately. But I stayed on my feet. So did he. He took exactly one step backward. Just one. And the room died. The DJ's hand froze mid-scratch, glasses hovered in the air, a woman's laugh cut off like a wire snapped. The silence was so complete I could hear my own pulse roaring in my ears. The man lifted his hand slowly to his face. Blood slid between his fingers. One dark drop trailed down his upper lip. He stared at it. Not in pain. In confusion. Then he looked at me. His eyes were not hazel, not amber. They were molten. Predatory gold, lit from within like something ancient had opened its gaze. You, he said quietly. The word vibrated through the floor. You struck me. I headbutted you, I corrected, forcing my spine straight even as my vision swam. There's a difference. One's an accident. The other is punctuation. I lifted my chin. You were blocking the staff exit. Someone whimpered behind the bar. Aria, a voice whispered. I glanced sideways. Every shifter in the club was on the ground. Bouncers.VIPs, predators who usually stalked rooms like kings. All kneeling. Necks exposed. Submitting. Cold realization slid through my blood. Slow. Horrified. This wasn't a drunk. This wasn't a rich asshole. This was power. This was hierarchy. This was the man whose face hung in government halls and corporate towers. Kale Draven. The Wolf Sovereign. The man entire cities were built to orbit. I turned back. He was watching me like I was the first interesting thing he'd seen in a century. You know who I am, he said. It wasn't a question. I do now, I replied, because fear has never stopped my mouth. You're the guy who owes me an ice pack. The sound that followed wasn't a gasp. It was a collective intake of terror. Kale stepped forward. The crowd recoiled. I didn't. He smelled like storm rain and expensive liquor and the sharp metallic edge of blood. He towered over me, broad shoulders filling the exit doorway, black suit tailored like a weapon. He raised his thumb. Wiped the blood from his lip. Then. He licked it. Slowly. Deliberately. His pupils swallowed the gold. And he smiled. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't kind. It was the expression of a predator who had just realized the prey had teeth. An ice pack, he murmured. Then he leaned down until his mouth brushed my ear. I don't think ice will fix what you just did to me. His breath was hot. Controlled. Dangerously calm. But you might. The doors exploded open behind him. Royal Guard flooded the club in tactical black, weapons drawn, eyes locking on the blood on his face. There, someone shouted. She's hostile. Don't. Cale didn't raise his voice. The word landed anyway. Every guard froze. Cale straightened slowly, still watching me. Touch her, he said softly, and you will lose the hand. My heart slammed. The city had just watched him choose. And he hadn't chosen mercy. He'd chosen interest. The guards didn't just freeze. They locked, like someone had yanked a chain tight around their spines. 12 men in tactical black, weapons angled, eyes fixed on me like I was a bomb that had already started ticking, and none of them moved. Because he said one word. And the whole world obeyed. Cale Draven turned his head slightly, as if the guards were a minor inconvenience instead of a lethal wall of muscle. Lower them, he said. A captain swallowed hard. Your Majesty, she assaulted you. We have protocol. Royal blood. Cale's gaze slid over him like a blade. Lower them. Metal clicked. Weapons dropped. Shoulders loosened. The captain's face went pale with obedience he couldn't fight. And then Cale looked back at me. Not at the blood. Not at his bruising nose. At me. You didn't bow, he observed. I don't bow in clubs, I snapped, even though my legs were turning into wet paper beneath me. It's bad for business. Somewhere behind the bar, the manager made a strangled sound, like she wanted to crawl into the ice machine and live there. Cale took one step forward. My back met the doorframe. The exit I'd been trying to reach was now a wall trapping me with him. He leaned in, close enough that I felt the heat of his body like a furnace. Your heartbeat is fast. That's what happens when someone blocks the exit, I shot back. People get stressed. His nostrils flared. Not in anger. In scenting. In interest. He lifted his hand slowly, so slowly my skin prickled with anticipation and panic, and touched my nose. Not rough. Not possessive. A careful brush, like he was testing whether I was real. My breath caught. Static snapped between us, sharp enough I heard it. Cale's eyes darkened as if that spark had fed something inside him. You're human, he murmured. I'm employed, I corrected. And you're bleeding in my club. A flicker of amusement hit his mouth. Not a smile. The beginning of one. Then he straightened and addressed the room without looking away from me. Who owns this place? No one answered. Because half the patrons were still kneeling and the other half looked like they were deciding whether fainting would save their lives. Cale's voice dropped, heavier. Who owns it? My manager, Morel, found her voice by force. Sovereign Draven, the club is leased under Blackfall Nightlife Holdings. We? Cale's attention finally shifted. His gaze moved to Morel like a spotlight. You allow your staff exits to be blocked? Morel's mouth opened and closed. Cale looked back at me. You asked him to move. Yes. How many times? Twice. Cale's hand brushed the bruise forming on his nose again. His thumb came away red. He stared at the blood with faint fascination, then brought it to his mouth and licked it. My stomach tightened. Every instinct in me screamed that that gesture meant something. In shifter culture, blood wasn't just blood. It was hierarchy. Challenge. Claim. And he'd tasted mine, because I'd put it on him. Twice, he echoed. So you warned him. I did. You did what most don't. Kale leaned closer again, voice low enough that only I could hear. You escalated when you were ignored. My throat went dry. I escalated because I'm tired of being treated like air. His gaze sharpened, like I'd just spoken the only language he respected. Before I could process that, the captain took one careful step forward, trembling under the weight of his own fear. Your Majesty, we need to secure you. If anyone recorded this, if the council. The council can choke, Kale said calmly. A ripple of shock moved through the guards. That wasn't something King said out loud. Kale didn't care. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a silk handkerchief. It looked expensive enough to buy my entire monthly rent. He dabbed at his nose. Winced. Then looked at me like pain was irrelevant. Name, he said. I felt my lips part, ready to lie. But my manager betrayed me again, voice cracking with panic. Aria, Morel blurted. Aria Vale. I turned my head sharply. Morel. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Kale rolled the name around in his mouth like he was tasting it the way he'd tasted blood. Aria, he murmured. It sounded wrong in his mouth. Not because of pronunciation. Because of possession. Like he was trying it on. Like he was deciding if it belonged to him. I didn't give you permission to speak to him, I hissed toward Morel. Kale's eyes flashed, briefly, intensely. Don't, he warned softly. I froze. Don't what? Don't apologize for being loud, he said. Don't shrink. My skin went cold hot. I'm not shrinking. He took another step in. Now his chest brushed mine. Now the doorframe pressed hard into my back. Now the club air felt too thin to breathe. You broke my nose, Kale said, voice dipped in something dark and pleased. You blocked my exit, I shot back. He inhaled. Deep. Like he was pulling my scent into his lungs and filing it away. Then, so casually it felt insane, he asked. Did it feel good? My brain short-circuited. What? Breaking it, he clarified. Did it satisfy you? I stared at him, stunned by the intimacy of the question. I could have answered with sarcasm. I could have played tough. But something in his eyes demanded honesty. So I swallowed and said quietly, it felt like, finally being heard. For the first time, Kale looked genuinely affected. Like the words landed somewhere under the armor. A beat of silence passed. Then he spoke again, even lower. I heard you. The captain cleared his throat like he was interrupting a prayer. Your Majesty, medical team is en route. We need to. Kale's head tilted. They will not touch me. Sire. Kale turned his gaze to the captain. It wasn't anger. It was authority made visible. The captain's knees bent involuntarily as if his body couldn't hold itself upright under that look. Kale turned back to me, voice soft again. You tried to run. I blinked. What? You shifted your weight. His eyes flicked briefly to my boots. You were preparing to bolt. I hated that he noticed. I hated that he was right. I don't like feeling trapped, I said. His lips twitched. Then you shouldn't have trapped me. I didn't trap you. You challenged me, Kale corrected. In public. The word challenge made my blood run colder. Because if he saw it as a challenge. The rules changed. The air shifted. The guards became statues again. Patrons stayed kneeling like prayerful animals. Kale leaned down and spoke right into my ear. If I were anyone else, he murmured, you would already be dead. My stomach dropped. Then he continued, and his breath brushed my skin like a secret. But you're interesting. That was worse. Because death was simple. Interest meant he would keep coming. Kale's fingers touched the edge of my jaw, guiding my face toward his. He studied me like an artifact. Like a puzzle. Then, without warning, he stepped back, just one step, and the pressure in the room eased like a hand releasing a throat. "Everyone up," Kale ordered. No one moved at first, like they couldn't believe they were allowed. Then slowly, shakily, shifters rose. Heads lifted. Spines straightened. Eyes remained downcast. Kale faced Morel. "Your staff member is under my protection." Morel nearly collapsed. "Sire," she assaulted. Kale's gaze snapped. "Under my protection." Morel nodded so hard her hair shook. "Yes. Yes, Sovereign." My mouth went dry. "I didn't ask for." Kale's eyes flicked to me. "You didn't ask to be blocked either." A beat. Then he turned to his captain. "Clear the building. No recordings. No leaks." The captain swallowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." Kale began to walk toward the front of the club. And for one delirious second, I thought. He's leaving. He's just leaving. Maybe this ends here. Maybe I survive tonight. Then he stopped. Turned his head. And looked at me again. The golden gaze pinned me like a hand around my throat. "Aria Vale," he said, voice calm, certain. "We are not finished." My pulse thudded. I forced my voice steady. "We were never started." Kale smiled fully for the first time. It was not a kind smile. It was a predator's promise. Then he walked out, guards falling into formation around him like a living wall. The moment he was gone, sound returned to the club like a wave crashing back into shore. People started talking all at once. Whispers, panicked, excited, terrified. "Oh my God, she hit him, did you see his eyes?" "She's dead." "No," he said. "Protection, that means." "No, that can't mean." Morel grabbed my arm. Her nails dug in. "Aria, what did you do?" I yanked my arm free. "I did my job." "You headbutt the Sovereign." "He blocked the exit." "That's the Sovereign," she hissed, eyes wild. "Do you understand what you just triggered?" My skull still throbbed. But the deeper ache wasn't pain. It was the sensation of being seen too clearly. Of being chosen by something that shouldn't want me. "I need air," I muttered. Morel tried to grab me again. "Don't leave." I dodged her and shoved through the kitchen, ignoring the cooks who stared at me like I was a walking execution notice. I burst into the back alley. Cold night air slapped me awake. My hand shook as I fumbled for my phone. No service. Of course. Blackfall's back alleys were dead zones, good for hiding bodies, bad for surviving royal attention. I pressed my forehead to the brick wall and breathed. In. Out. My mind raced. Okay. Plan. Simple plan. Get home. Pack a bag. Leave Blackfall. Disappear. No social media. No bank cards. No old contacts. Because if Kale Draven wanted to find me, he would. He'd find me the way storms find coastlines. By nature. By inevitability. I pushed off the wall and started running. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and the city lights blurred. Blackfall City at night wasn't romantic. It was hungry. Neon bled over wet pavement. Luxury towers rose like knives. Lower districts stank of salt, smoke, and desperation. I cut through alleys and side streets, avoiding main roads. Avoiding cameras. Avoiding anyone who might look at me too long. When I finally reached my apartment building, Rookstone Flats, a crumbling brick walk-up near the edge of the human district, I practically tore the door open. Stairs. 2 at a time. My key shook in my lock. I got inside and slammed the door behind me. 3 deadbolts. Click. 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 I leaned against the wood and slid down. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I did it. I made it home. I was safe. Then I looked at my hands. They were still stained faintly red. Not mine. His. And the memory hit me like a second headbutt. His mouth on his thumb. His eyes darkening. His voice, finally. I shoved myself up. No, I whispered to the empty room. Nope. No obsession. No royal games. I grabbed my duffel bag from the closet. Threw clothes in. Socks, jeans, hoodie, toiletries. Passport. Cash jar from under the sink. The whole time, my thoughts spiraled. If I left tonight, maybe he'd lose interest. Maybe I'd become a story shifters told as a joke. Remember the human who headbutt the sovereign? She vanished. Smart girl. I zipped the bag. I turned toward the door. Knock. 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 Polite. Precise. A sound that didn't belong in my hallway. I froze so hard my bones felt locked. The knocks came again. Knock. 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 A man's voice followed, deep, smooth, unhurried. Aria Vale. I swallowed. My throat went dry. My blood went cold. I'm here on behalf of the new owner, the voice said. New owner? My mind raced. Landlord? Eviction? No. Not now. Not. Open the door, the man continued, almost bored. We know you're inside. My gaze snapped to my window. Fire escape. I could run. I could. The voice spoke again, and it was like someone had read my thought. And don't bother with the fire escape, he added. 2 of our men are already on the balcony. My breath stopped. I backed away from the door slowly, duffel bag heavy in my hand. Then I forced myself forward. If I was going to die, I wasn't going to do it hiding behind plywood. I threw the locks. Swung the door open. A man stood there in a gray suit, clipboard in one hand, tablet in the other. Not a guard. Not an assassin. He looked like an accountant. Miss Vale, he said politely, adjusting his glasses. Good evening. What is this? My voice came out sharp. Are you here to arrest me? The man blinked. Arrest? No, ma'am. I'm from property management. I frowned, confused. Property, my landlord is. Not anymore, he said smoothly. Your building was sold approximately 46 minutes ago. My stomach dropped. Sold? I repeated. To who? He turned the tablet toward me. A gold crest sat at the top of the document. A wolf crowned in iron. And beneath it, one name. Draven Consortium. My vision narrowed. My pulse roared. The man spoke like he was reading a grocery list. The new owner has decided to repurpose the building for redevelopment, he said. All tenants are to vacate immediately. That's illegal, I snapped. Evictions take 30 days. There are laws. The accountant-like man offered a polite smile that held no warmth. In Blackfall, he said, the sovereign is the law. He stepped aside. The hallway behind him revealed 2 men in black suits, broad, silent, dangerous. Not holding cuffs. Holding the elevator door open. The property manager's voice softened, almost apologetic. Your alternative housing has already been arranged, Miss Vale, he said. And the sovereign requests your presence. He glanced at his clipboard. Regarding his nose. My duffel bag slipped slightly in my grip. My body felt light. Like gravity had changed. Because I understood something in that moment, something worse than execution. Cale Draven didn't want me dead. He wanted me delivered. And he'd just bought the ground under my feet to make sure I couldn't run. The elevator waited. The men waited. And somewhere above Blackfall City, a king with a broken nose was smiling. The elevator smelled like polished steel and money. There was no music. No security announcement. No comforting hum. Just silence. The two men in black suits stepped in behind me, one on each side, close enough that I could feel the heat of their bodies through my hoodie. Not restraining me. Not threatening me. Containing me. The accountant pressed a button on the panel. There were no numbers. Just a gold crest. The door slid shut. And the building dropped. My stomach floated as the elevator accelerated upward, so smooth and fast it felt unreal. The city peeled away beneath us. "Where are you taking me?" I demanded. The accountant glanced up from his tablet. Draven Spire. My pulse stuttered. Everyone in Blackfall knew Draven Spire. The tallest structure on the eastern seaboard. Corporate headquarters, royal residence, government nerve center. A vertical city owned entirely by one bloodline. The man continued reading like my life wasn't actively imploding. "The sovereign has prepared temporary accommodations for you in the upper residential sector." I didn't agree to go anywhere. He smiled politely. "No. You didn't." The elevator slowed. Then stopped. The doors slid open. And Blackfall vanished. I stepped into a world made of glass and night. The penthouse level wasn't an apartment. It was an atmosphere. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped the space in a panoramic view of the city, lights scattered like stars beneath us. A river cut through the dark like molten silver. Far below, traffic traced glowing veins. The air smelled like cedar, ozone, and something wild I couldn't name. Somewhere water trickled. Somewhere fire crackled. Somewhere, power lived. And in the center of it all, like the eye of a storm, stood Cale Draven. He wasn't wearing the suit anymore. He wore black slacks and a dark button-down, open at the throat, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms roped with muscle and faint old scars. His hair was damp, pushed back like he'd just washed blood from his hands. He was holding a glass in one hand. And an ice pack to his face with the other. He didn't look at me at first. He was staring out the windows at the city he ruled. "You run fast," he said calmly. "For a human." I took 3 steps forward before my courage caught up with my fear. "You bought my building," I snapped. "You can't just erase people's homes because you're curious." Cale's head tilted slightly. Then he turned. The bruise had already bloomed across the bridge of his nose, dark and violent. His eyes, though. They were alert. Focused. Predatory. "You escaped," he said. I corrected that. "That's not correction. That's kidnapping." "Kidnapping implies I intend to harm you," Cale replied. "I don't." He lowered the ice pack. Set it aside. And walked toward me. Each step he took didn't just close space. It changed it. The air thickened. My skin prickled. My body went painfully aware of itself. "I brought you here," he said, stopping a few feet away, "because you did something no one has done in over 2 decades. I folded my arms. "Headbutt royalty?" "You disrupted me," he corrected. I snorted. "That's one way to phrase assault." Cale's mouth curved faintly. "I sleep 2 hours a night." That wasn't what I expected. He turned away from me and walked toward a massive black marble bar integrated into the room. He poured something amber into a low crystal glass. "I haven't slept properly since I took the crown," he said. Doctors, alphas, shamans, scientists. Nothing works. He took a slow sip. Then you hit me. I stared. You're saying this is my fault? No, he said. I'm saying it stopped. My breath caught. Cale turned back to me. When your skull met mine, he continued, voice low, something snapped. Not just bone. He tapped his chest once. Noise. Pressure. The constant pull of command. His jaw flexed. It went quiet. I frowned. That doesn't make sense. Neither do you, he replied calmly. Yet here you are. I shifted my weight. So what, I'm a stress ball. You abducted me because I'm good for your migraines? Cale studied me. Long. Carefully. Then he said, you are a variable. My stomach tightened. I rule a world built on predictability, he continued. Bloodlines. Dominance. Fear. Everyone reacts the way they're supposed to. His gaze sharpened. You didn't. I swallowed. And I don't discard variables, Cale finished. I observe them. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. He set his glass down and walked closer. Not to trap me. Not to touch me. Just close enough that I could feel his presence like gravity. I bought your building, he said quietly, because you were going to disappear. Because you scared me, I shot back. Good, he replied. Fear keeps people alive. Then let me live somewhere else. Cale's jaw tightened. No. My pulse spiked. Why? Because the moment footage leaks, he said, you become leverage. The word sliced. Someone recorded tonight, he continued. Someone always does. The council. Rival packs. Foreign syndicates. He leaned in slightly. The woman who broke the sovereign's face will be hunted. Cold spread through my veins. Kidnapping me puts a target on my back, I said. Wrong, Cale corrected. It puts you under my shield. And if someone wants to hurt you, I said quietly, they'll go through me. His eyes darkened. Yes. Silence fell. I looked around the penthouse. The windows. The open space. The invisible guards I could feel more than see. A cage made of gold is still a cage, I said. Cale's gaze didn't leave my face. Only if you refuse to own it. I laughed bitterly. You're unbelievable. And you're homeless, he replied. I flinched. He exhaled, slow. You will stay here. Guest wing. Your own floor. Your own security. You will continue working as a bartender. My head snapped up. Excuse me? For me. No. Yes. I'm not pouring drinks for the man who evicted me. I bought the club, he said. You work for me either way. My jaw dropped. You bought. The velvet vortex has poor exit design, he said mildly. And inadequate threat containment. You bought my job. I corrected that too. Anger flared. You don't get to rewrite my life because you're bored. Cale stepped closer. And this time, the heat between us was different. Sharper. Not hunger. Control. I don't get bored, he said. I get surrounded. I met his gaze. Then be surrounded by someone else. A beat. Then something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Not dominance. Annoyance. No one annoyed him. Except me. You want to leave, he said slowly. Yes. Then do. I blinked. What? Cale gestured casually toward the massive windows. Walk out. Elevators are active. Doors are open. I hesitated. That's it? For now. For now? I echoed. If you leave, he continued, you are no longer under my protection. My heart thudded. You believe someone won't touch you because of what you did to me, he said. You're wrong. I stared at him. You won't make it out of Blackfall alive. The room felt colder. Is that a threat? No, Cale said softly. It's a warning. I thought of the kneeling shifters. The fear. The whispers that would spread by morning. The woman who struck the sovereign. My shoulders dropped an inch. What are you offering? I asked. His gaze softened a fraction. Stay, he said. Live. Work. Observe me. Let me observe you. Like a science experiment? Like an anomaly. I exhaled slowly. And if I say no? Cale stepped back, giving me space. Then I erase you from this city before others decide to. My stomach twisted. That wasn't mercy. But it was survival. I looked around the penthouse again. At the windows. At the impossible height. At the world he could collapse with a sentence. Then I met his eyes. Fine, I said. I'll stay. Not because I trusted him. Because I didn't trust anyone else. Cale studied my face. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. Good. He turned and gestured toward a sleek hallway. Guest wing. Your things will arrive shortly. I stiffened. You already moved my stuff? Yes. Of course you did. A corner of his mouth lifted. You start tonight, he added. Doing what? Cale's eyes glinted. Pouring drinks, he said. And reminding me I'm still human enough to bleed. Something in his voice made my skin prickle. And Aria? I looked back. He lifted the ice pack again. Try not to break anything else. He paused. Unless you mean to. I didn't sleep that night. The guest suite they put me in was larger than my old apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Black stone bathroom. Bed like a cloud. Security posted outside. Not to keep me in. To keep others out. I sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around myself, staring at the city. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. You don't belong there. My chest tightened. Another buzz. He breaks everything he touches. Another. Leave while you can. My fingers went numb. I didn't reply. At 2:14 a.m., the message thread disappeared. Deleted. My door remained closed. My guards remained silent. And somewhere above me, Cale Draven didn't sleep either. I didn't sleep. Every time my eyes closed, I saw his. Gold. Molten. Focused on me like I was the first crack in a wall that had never broken. So when the soft chimes sounded through the guest suite at exactly 5:30 a.m., I was already sitting upright on the bed, fully dressed, pulse steady in the way it only gets when fear has nowhere left to go. A calm female voice filled the room. Miss Vale. Your presence is requested in the upper lounge. Upper lounge. Of course there was an upper lounge. I stood, smoothed my hoodie, and walked to the door. It opened before I touched it. 2 guards waited. Different from the ones last night. Larger. Heavier. Their eyes didn't move the way normal people's did. These weren't ceremonial soldiers. These were Cale's personal wardens. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. I followed. The upper lounge was darker than the main level. Walls of tinted glass. A fire burning low in a recessed pit. A bar that made the one downstairs look like a roadside counter. And Kale. He stood with his back to me, shirtless, facing the windows. I stopped short. Scars crossed his back. Old ones. Deep ones. Claw marks. Blade lines. Burn scars. History written in flesh. He spoke without turning. You should be asleep. So should you, I replied. He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. I don't sleep, he said. I shut down. He turned. The bruise on his nose was darker this morning. Violet and black, spreading like ink beneath skin. His eyes lifted to mine. Something in his expression shifted. Not hunger. Not dominance. Assessment. You're shaking, he said. I'm not. You are. I glanced down. My hands were clenched. White-knuckled. He moved, not fast, not slow, but controlled, crossing the space until he was a few feet away. Sit, he said. Make me. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then interest again. He gestured toward the bar stool. Please. That threw me. I sat. Kale moved behind the bar with practiced ease, pulling bottles, measuring, working with the precision of someone who didn't need staff to pretend he was untouchable. What are you making? I asked. Something you'll drink, he replied. He slid a glass toward me. Clear. Citrusy. Sharp-smelling. Electrolytes, he said. And a mild sedative. I stiffened. Excuse me? So you don't collapse, he clarified. Not so you lose control. I studied him. Then the drink. Then him again. If I wake up missing a kidney, I will haunt this building. I own hospitals, he said calmly. It would be inefficient. Against my better judgment, I took a sip. Cool. Bitter. Grounding. The tremor in my hands eased slightly. Kale watched my reaction with focused intensity. You're already adapting, he murmured. To what? I snapped. To pressure. He leaned his forearms on the bar across from me. You think this is about fascination, he continued. About ego. Isn't it? No, he said. It's about recognition. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? Kale's gaze dropped to the glass in my hands. When you hit me, he said quietly, you triggered something that hasn't answered in generations. The fire popped softly behind him. In my bloodline, there is an old response, he continued. An instinctual bond mechanism. Rare. Supposedly extinct. I didn't like where this was going. Kale. When an external force disrupts the sovereign's dominance field violently enough, he said, it initiates a counter-recognition. My breath hitched. In English. He lifted his eyes. You didn't submit, he said. You didn't fear. You didn't defer. You broke through. I shook my head. I broke your nose. His lips twitched. Yes. Then his expression sobered. But my system responded as if you had challenged and survived. Silence. In wolf hierarchies, he continued, that response exists to identify a potential equal. My pulse thundered. I'm not a wolf. No, Kale agreed. Which is why this should not be possible. Then stop talking like it is. He straightened slowly. It already happened. A chill slid through me. What happens next? I asked. Kale studied me for a long moment. People will test you, he said. The court. The council. The packs. Because of you. Because of what you represent. And what is that? I demanded. His voice dropped. A disruption point. My jaw tightened. You brought me here to start a war? I brought you here, he corrected, to prevent one. I let out a humorless laugh. Too late. As if summoned by my words, the room lights dimmed slightly. A low chime sounded through the penthouse. Cale's attention snapped to the ceiling. Already, he muttered. A woman's voice replaced the ambient silence. Security breach attempt neutralized. Outer surveillance grid compromised and restored. No casualties. My skin prickled. What was that? Cale's jaw flexed. The first move. I stood. First move of what? Of people confirming whether the rumor is real, he said. What rumor? His gaze locked on mine. That the human who broke the sovereign is still breathing. Before I could respond, the doors at the far end of the lounge opened. A man entered. Tall. Ash blonde. Sharply dressed. His eyes went immediately to me. Then back to Cale. Then he smiled. Good, he said pleasantly. She exists. Cale's posture changed. The air around him compressed. Hi, Counselor Reese, Cale said flatly. You're early. Reese's smile widened. Emergency sessions tend to make mornings flexible. His gaze drifted back to me, unashamed. So, he said. This is her. I didn't like the way he said that. Like I was a confirmed theory. You don't bring counselors into my residence without clearance, Cale said. Reese shrugged. Technically, I do. That's what oversight means. His eyes flicked to Cale's nose. Then back to me. I must say, Reese continued, you're underwhelming. My mouth opened. Cale spoke first. Leave. Reese lifted a brow. Already? Yes. Reese took a step closer. Security shifted. Cale didn't move. I just wanted to see her, Reese said calmly. The anomaly. My stomach dropped. You're human, Reese said to me. But not entirely ordinary. I stared. What are you talking about? Reese's gaze sharpened with interest. The resonance from last night's incident registered on 3 monitoring arrays, he said. That shouldn't happen from a blunt force altercation. He smiled. Something in you responded. Cale's voice went lethal. Leave. Now. Reese chuckled. Careful, Sovereign. Your tone implies attachment. Cale stepped forward. The guards reacted instantly. The room's temperature dropped like someone had opened a freezer door. Reese lifted both hands placatingly. Very well. I've seen enough. He turned toward the exit, then paused. Looked back at me. You should run, he said softly. Because when the council confirms what you are. He smiled thinly. You won't belong to him anymore. Then he left. The doors closed. Silence followed. Heavy. Oppressive. I turned to Cale. What does he mean, what I am? Cale didn't answer immediately. His hands were clenched. Knuckles white. You're alive, he said finally. That's enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting today. I took a step closer. Cale. He looked down at me. And for the first time since I'd met him, the gold in his eyes looked uncertain. Aria, he said quietly, from this moment on, nothing about your life is small anymore. A chill moved through me. You're under my protection, he continued. But you're also under observation. By who? Everyone. I crossed my arms. Then you'd better hope I'm worth the trouble. Something dark and pleased stirred in his gaze. I already know you are, he said. He turned toward the bar. Your shift starts in 10 minutes. I blinked. You're joking. I'm not, he replied. I have a council briefing. And a headache. He glanced over his shoulder. And apparently, you're the only one who disrupts both. By the time my shift officially began, I had learned 3 things about Cale Draven's world. First, nothing here was built for comfort. It was built for dominance disguised as elegance. Even the couches were arranged like they were judging you. Second, no one ever truly entered a room with him. They were admitted. And third, everyone was afraid of the throne. Not the chair itself. What it represented. It sat on a slightly raised platform at the far end of the upper council lounge, carved from black stone veined with silver, angular and severe. No cushion. No ornament. Just a seat shaped to remind whoever occupied it that power was a weight before it was a privilege. I stood behind the bar in a stiff white shirt someone had laid out for me like a uniform, sleeves rolled to my elbows, hair pulled back. The marble counter was cool beneath my palms. My stomach wasn't. The doors opened one by one. Generals. Council members. Regional alphas. They entered in controlled clusters, voices low, posture stiff. Conversation thinned as eyes drifted to me. Some curious. Some openly hostile. Some calculating in a way that made my skin itch. I felt like a bruise everyone wanted to press. Cale arrived last. The room didn't go silent. It locked. Conversations didn't fade. They cut off. He didn't look at anyone as he walked to the raised platform. He didn't need to. They were already watching. Already aligning. Already submitting in ways that didn't require kneeling. He sat. The effect rippled. I felt it in my bones. The pressure I'd sensed the night before returned, heavier now, like altitude sickness in my chest. The longer he sat there, the harder it was to remember what it felt like to stand in a room without a hierarchy. Begin, Cale said. And the war table woke. Maps lit across the central glass surface. Borders glowed. Territory markers pulsed. Numbers scrolled like living things. A silver-haired wolf general stood. Southern maritime routes have reported interference. 3 shipments failed to arrive. 2 were traced to eastern syndicates. Names, Cale said. The general spoke them. They meant nothing to me. They meant everything to the men around the table. As voices layered over one another, strategies, accusations, probabilities, I focused on what I could control. Glasses. Ice. Pour. Slide. My job was simple. Make drinks. Stay invisible. Don't look like leverage. It worked for approximately 3 minutes. Then a councilwoman with scaled irises and a voice like dry leaves said, "Sovereign, your presence appears, divided this morning." Every head turned. Not to Cale. To me. My grip tightened on the shaker. Cale didn't look my way. "Explain," he said calmly. "Your residents experienced a breach attempt at dawn," she continued. "We were not notified through official channels." "You were notified," Cale replied. "You were not invited." A murmur followed. "The human's presence complicates protocol," another counselor said. "She has no rank. No designation. No classification." "She has my protection," Cale said. "Which is precisely the problem," the councilwoman pressed. "Protection implies priority. Priority implies vulnerability." My pulse ticked louder. Cale leaned back in the throne. "Do not," he said, "mistake my restraint for permission." The air thickened. The councilwoman's mouth pressed thin. "Of course not, Sovereign. We only seek clarity." "You seek control," Cale corrected. "There is a difference." His gaze finally lifted. "And found me." The pressure shifted. Not heavier. Focused. A quiet awareness threaded through my spine, like a wire drawn tight. "Another drink," he said. The request was casual. The room heard it as command. I picked up a clean glass and began to work, conscious of every eye tracking my movements. I could feel speculation forming like weather. I placed the glass on a tray and walked it toward him. Every step closer to the raised platform felt like moving uphill against gravity. I stopped beside his armrest. "Set the drink down." "Dry," I said quietly. "Like you asked." His fingers brushed mine. Not accidental. Not lingering. Intentional. The contact snapped. Not painfully. But vividly. Heat. Static. A sensation like the air popping before lightning. My breath hitched. Cale's eyes darkened instantly. For half a second, the entire room vanished. It was just his hand. Mine. The recognition he'd talked about curling like something alive under my skin. Then he pulled back. The room rushed in. And everyone noticed. The councilwoman inhaled sharply. A low murmur rose around the table. I returned to the bar with my heart hammering. Something had shifted. I didn't know what. But they did. The meeting continued. And I became a weapon no one had agreed to place on the table. Half an hour later, the doors opened again. And the energy in the room changed. Not heavier. Tighter. 6 women entered. Escorted. Beautiful. Composed. Deadly in the way polished knives are deadly. They wore gowns that whispered status. Jewelry that spoke bloodlines. Their scents layered: wolf, cat, avian, serpentine. Eligible. That word hung in the air. Even I could feel what they were. Unmated high-ranking females. Court-approved. Politically valuable. They arranged themselves along the wall like curated art. Cale didn't acknowledge them. But the council did. "This," the silver-haired general said carefully, "brings us to the lunar calendar." The room stilled. My stomach sank. "The convergence occurs in 6 days," he continued. "The court has prepared the gala." Another murmur. Another ripple of expectation. The word gala was too soft for what they meant. It wasn't a party. It was a choosing. Cale's jaw flexed. "I'm aware," he said. "Attendance will be mandatory," the councilwoman added. "Public. Symbolic. The city requires reassurance." "Reassurance of what?" Cale asked. "That stability remains," she replied. "That the sovereign's line will continue." My fingers curled around the edge of the counter. I didn't know all their customs. But I knew that tone. They weren't asking him. They were reminding him. Cale's gaze flicked to the line of women. Then back to the council. "And you've already selected the options," he said flatly. The councilwoman inclined her head. "Vetted. Approved. Bloodline balanced." His mouth curved without humor. "Efficient." One of the women glanced at me. Just a look. Sharp. Assessing. Then she smiled. Not kindly. "Miss Vale," the councilwoman said suddenly. Every nerve in my body went rigid. "Yes?" I replied before I could stop myself. Her gaze skimmed me like a blade across cloth. "You will not be present at the gala." My heart stumbled. I wasn't planning to. "Good," she said. "Because this is not entertainment." Her eyes shifted meaningfully. "It is alignment." Cale's voice cut in. "She will be wherever I decide she will be." The councilwoman's expression tightened. "With respect, Sovereign, this ceremony exists beyond personal indulgence." Indulgence. My jaw clenched. Cale rose. The effect was immediate. Chairs stilled. Spines straightened. "You do not get to categorize my choices," he said quietly. "Not here. Not ever." The silence that followed was absolute. Then he looked at me. Not like a king. Like a man who was very aware he was being watched. "Leave us," he said to the council. The command landed. One by one, they stood. Not quickly. Not eagerly. But they did it. The 6 women were ushered out first, their eyes lingering. Then the counselors followed. The doors closed. The room emptied. Only Cale and I remained. And the throne that no longer held him. He didn't return to it. He walked toward me instead. Slow. Controlled. Dangerous in his restraint. "I didn't summon you to this world," he said quietly, stopping a few feet away. "But you are here." I crossed my arms. "They hate me." He exhaled. "They fear disruption." "Then you shouldn't keep me near you." His gaze sharpened. "Why?" "Because they'll use me." "They already are," Cale replied. "They tried to classify you within an hour." "That's not comforting." "Neither is being sovereign." He leaned his hip against the bar. "You heard them," he continued. "They expect me to choose." I swallowed. "And you will." "Eventually." "And the gala?" I asked. His eyes met mine. "I will attend." "With them." "With whoever sits where the cameras can see," he said. The words stung. More than they should have. "And me?" I asked. Cale hesitated. "Just a fraction." "But I saw it." "I don't know yet," he admitted. Something hollow opened in my chest. "That's an answer," I said quietly. I stepped back from the bar. "I'm not here to be a complication," I added. "Or a distraction." He straightened. "You're not either." "Then what am I?" I challenged. Cale studied me. Long. As if the answer wasn't one he was used to giving. "You're the only thing in this building that doesn't belong to the system," he said. "And that makes you dangerous." "Good," I replied. Because it hurt less than what I was actually feeling. The idea that a throne and a gala and a line of perfect women could push me back into the margins of my own life. "I'm going to my room," I said. Cale nodded once. "Guards will remain." "Of course they will." I turned. And walked away from the throne that had been watching me since I entered the room. Behind me, Cale didn't move. But I felt his attention like weight between my shoulder blades. And I knew something had begun. Not romance. Not war. Alignment. And alignment always costs blood. The first attempt on my life came 3 hours after the council left. It wasn't dramatic. No guns. No alarms. No cinematic shadows sliding under doors. It came disguised as comfort. A knock. Soft. Polite. "Miss Vale," a woman's voice said through the guest suite door. "Room service." I wasn't hungry. I was pacing. Barefoot on cold stone, mind replaying the council meeting like a bruise you keep pressing. Still, routine is how people survive unfamiliar places. Routine is how predators slip past defenses. So I opened the door. She stood there in a pale uniform, hair in a tight bun, eyes lowered respectfully. A covered tray in her hands. Steam curled upward, carrying the smell of citrus and broth. "Compliments of the sovereign," she said. My shoulders loosened a fraction. Cale had a habit of overcompensating with food. "Thank you," I said, stepping aside. She entered. Set the tray on the low table by the window. Turned to leave. Then her hand snapped up. "Not holding a pen." Not holding a tablet. Holding a blade. Thin. Black. Too narrow to see until it was already moving. My body reacted before thought. I twisted sideways. The knife sliced through the air where my throat had been. She pivoted, fluid and silent, striking again. I stumbled back, heart detonating. Wait. She didn't speak. Her eyes weren't human. They were glassy. Empty. Like someone else was driving. I grabbed the nearest thing I could reach. A chair. Swung it. The impact knocked her off balance, but she recovered instantly, blade flashing toward my ribs. Pain seared across my forearm. Hot. Sharp. Real. I gasped and kicked. Hard. My heel caught her knee. Something popped. She hissed. Not human. A sound like compressed air. She lunged again. The room felt too small. The windows too high. The door too far. I reached behind me and my fingers brushed the metal ice bucket. I hurled it. It struck her temple with a dull, heavy crack. She went down. Not unconscious. But stunned. The blade skittered across the stone. I didn't hesitate. I bolted for the door. Yanked it open. And slammed straight into Cale. He had been reaching for the handle. My blood streaked across his chest. His eyes dropped. Then lifted. And the entire floor went still. He didn't ask what happened. He moved. One arm wrapped around my waist and pulled me back. The other shot forward. The woman lunged from the room. Too slow. Cale caught her wrist mid-swing. The sound that came from his throat wasn't human. It was the beginning of something ancient and violent. He twisted. Bone shattered. The blade fell. The woman tried to scream. He slammed her into the wall. The stone cracked. Security flooded the corridor. Weapons raised. Orders shouted. Cale didn't look at them. He looked at her. Who sent you? He demanded. Her lips parted. Blood slid from her mouth. Counsel, didn't, she whispered. Then her eyes rolled back. And she went limp. Cale released her. She crumpled. He turned to me. My arm was bleeding. Slowly. Bright. He took my wrist. Gentle. Careful. Are you hurt? He asked. Yes, I said. I think that answers itself. His jaw clenched. Medics, he snapped. The guards moved. But Cale didn't let go of my arm. His thumb brushed near the cut. The moment his skin touched my blood, the world lurched. Heat surged up my arm. Not burning. Not pain. Awareness. Sharp and overwhelming. Cale sucked in a breath. His grip tightened involuntarily. The air between us vibrated like a struck wire. My vision blurred. The corridor seemed to tilt. Cale, I whispered. Some things. He released me abruptly. Stepped back. His pupils were blown wide. Black swallowing gold. Get her inside, he ordered. They did. The rest of the scene blurred. Medical lights. Pressure on my arm. Cool antiseptic. Voices murmuring. But Cale never left the room. He stood near the wall like a statue pulled from a storm. Watching. Waiting. When the medics finally finished and filed out, he approached slowly. Sit, he said. I was already sitting. On the edge of the bed. Heart still hammering. What was that? I asked. The council made their first mistake, Cale replied. Sending a servant? Sending anyone, he said. He crouched in front of me. Not to dominate. To meet my eye level. You shouldn't have reacted the way you did, he continued. What way? I snapped. By not dying? No, he said. By not bleeding normally. My breath caught. What does that mean? He hesitated. Then reached for the small bandage the medic had placed. He peeled it back. The cut was closed. Not scabbed. Closed. Smooth. Pink skin where blood had been. I stared. I touched it. I was bleeding. You were, Cale confirmed. For approximately 30 seconds. My pulse roared. That's not possible. For you, he agreed. Silence stretched. Reese wasn't speculating this morning, Cale said quietly. He was confirming. Confirming what? That you are not fully human. Cold slid down my spine. No, I said immediately. That's not true. Cale studied my face. Have you ever healed fast before? He asked. No. Ever made animals react strangely? No. Ever been resistant to sedatives? I thought of the drink. The way my shaking had stopped almost instantly. Maybe. Ever been drawn to shifter territory? My chest tightened. Black fall. The way I'd drifted here after leaving foster care. The way I'd always felt like the air in shifter districts carried something heavier. Yes, I whispered. Cale exhaled slowly. Decades ago, he said, the council funded covert genetic research. My stomach twisted. Hybrid viability programs, he continued. Human shifter compatibility studies. Most were shut down. Most? Some went underground. I stared at him. You think I'm a lab experiment? I think, Cale said, someone altered you before you were old enough to remember. The room felt suddenly unreal. I don't remember anything like that, I said. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. My breath came faster. You think that's why you reacted to me, I said. Partially. And the rest? Cale's gaze softened. Because you don't submit. I laughed weakly. That's not genetic. That's trauma. He didn't smile. The council believes blood determines position, he said. You disrupt that. I stared at my closed wound. At my unblemished skin. At the place where a knife had cut me. You knew something was wrong with me, I said. I suspected, Cale admitted. But you still brought me here. Yes. Into their reach. Yes. Anger flared. You used me. His jaw tightened. I protected you. You made me a target. You already were one, he countered. The moment you broke my face. I pushed off the bed. You don't get to experiment on me because you're curious. Cale stood. I am not experimenting, he said firmly. I am intervening. By keeping me locked in your tower. By keeping you alive. We stared at each other. Two forces neither of us had chosen. Finally, he spoke again. The council will escalate, he said. They will try softer methods. Smears. Offers. Influence. And if that doesn't work, they'll move to removal. My stomach dropped. Removal of who? I asked. His gaze held mine. Both of us. A chill slid through me. You think they can remove you? I know they can try. Silence fell. I don't want this, I said. Cale's expression changed. Not dominance. Not calculation. Something quieter. Neither did I, he replied. But it's here. He reached out. Stopped inches from my arm. Didn't touch. Aria, he said quietly. If you stay, this becomes a war. And if I leave? He lowered his hand. Then you die alone. The words were not cruel. They were certain. I closed my eyes. Exhaled. Then opened them. If I stay, I said, you don't hide things from me again. Cale studied me. Then nodded once. Agreed. And if I'm not fully human, I added, I find out what I am. Yes. And if the council comes for you, I finished, they don't get to do it quietly. Something dark and approving stirred in his gaze. No, he said. They don't. A chime echoed through the penthouse. Security alert. Cale's attention snapped upward. Then back to me. They've called an emergency assembly, he said. When? Tomorrow. What happens there? Cale straightened. They decide whether I still sit on the throne. A slow, dangerous calm settled over me. Then, I said, I guess I'm attending. Cale's eyes narrowed. It won't be a meeting, he warned. It will be a tribunal. I met his gaze. Good, I said. I've always wanted to see what happens when a court realizes the witness bites back. Something fierce and proud moved across his face. You really are trouble, he murmured. I didn't deny it. The tribunal chamber was carved into bedrock. Older than cities. Older than kings. They accused him of instability. Of compromised judgment. Of protecting a liability. Me. They invoked Clause 9. Emergency removal. They planned to strip his crown. And terminate me. So I stepped forward. Put me on trial, I said. Not as his weakness. As your alleged threat. The chamber erupted. Cale tried to stop me. I didn't let him. If they were going to erase me, they would have to acknowledge me first. The council accepted. A classification hearing. If I failed, I would be terminated. If I passed, I would be elevated. When the gavel struck, Cale turned to me. And then, the Alpha Sovereign of the 12 Dominions went to one knee. Before the woman they meant to erase. You are not my weakness, he said. You are my proof. They escorted me out. Toward containment. Toward testing. Toward whatever I truly was. Cale didn't follow. He couldn't. But I felt him. A tether in my spine. For the first time since I broke his face. I wasn't running. I was stepping forward. They kept me underground for 3 days. No windows. No clocks. Just stone walls etched with sigils older than language, and glass rooms where men and women in council black observed me like I was something pulled from the sea. They took blood. Hair. Skin samples. They shone lights into my eyes. They exposed me to sound frequencies that made my teeth vibrate and heat that made the air ripple. And every single test confirmed the same thing. My body wasn't failing. It was answering. Cells regenerated too fast. Neural activity spiked when shifter presence intensified. My blood responded to dominance fields like a second nervous system. Not wolf. Not human. Something built to interface. To bridge. To survive between. On the 4th day, they stopped asking questions. On the 5th, they started arguing. I heard it through the walls. Voices rising. Power struggling to pretend it was reason. And on the 6th day, Cale came. Not as a sovereign. Not with guards. He walked into the chamber alone. Black clothes. Unshaven. Eyes like burned gold. The door sealed behind him. The room felt suddenly too small for both of us. They voted, he said. I stood slowly. My pulse didn't race anymore. It waited. What am I? I asked. Kale stopped a few feet away. They classified you, he said. Adaptive hybrid interface. I blinked. That's not a thing. It is now. He studied my face. They confirmed you carry altered human DNA layered with dormant shifter markers, he continued. Someone engineered compatibility without species override. For what purpose? Kale exhaled slowly. To create someone who could stand inside dominance without being consumed by it. The words settled heavy in my chest. And their verdict? I asked. They can't remove you, he said. And they can't control you. So? So they did what institutions always do when they fail, Kale said quietly. They legitimized you. My breath caught. They elevated you to protected sovereign asset, he continued. Independent political entity. Untouchable without public cause. Asset, I repeated flatly. Kale's jaw tightened. I rejected that language, he said. But the status stands. I searched his eyes. And you? I asked. Something shifted. Not king. Man. They reaffirmed my position, he said. And rewrote the succession doctrine. My chest tightened. Rewrote how? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer. Close enough that I felt the low vibration of him under my skin. They recognized what already happened, he said. What happened? Kale lifted his hand. Slow. Careful. Not commanding. Asking. He touched my wrist. The instant contact occurred. Heat surged. Not sharp. Not violent. Deep. Familiar. Like something aligning that had been skewed my entire life. My breath left me. The room dimmed. Not physically. Perceptually. His pulse threaded into mine. My awareness expanded outward. The stone beneath my feet felt warm. The air felt thick. Alive. Kale's eyes darkened. Recognition, he said hoarsely. Not a word. A truth. The bond rose between us. Not chains. Not submission. A resonance. Two frequencies finally in phase. My hand lifted without permission. Pressed to his chest. And felt my own rhythm echo there. I feel you, I whispered. Kale's jaw flexed. So do I. Emotion rippled through him, sharp, unguarded. Not dominance. Relief. For the first time since I met him, the pressure in his presence broke. And something human stepped through. They amended royal doctrine, he said quietly. A sovereign may no longer rule alone. My eyes lifted. They created a second axis, he continued. A counter-sovereign. The word struck. You, Kale said. Silence swallowed the room. I pulled my hand back slowly. Don't, I said. Don't what? Turn me into a symbol, I replied. I didn't survive that chamber to become your ornament. His eyes burned. You are not, he said. You are the only thing in this world that has ever destabilized me without destroying me. That's not romance. It's truth. He stepped closer. So is this, he added quietly. He lowered himself. Not kneeling. Meeting my height. Foreheads nearly touching. I did not choose you because you fit my world, Kale said. I chose you because you broke it. My chest tightened. I don't know how to be royal, I said. Good, he replied. Neither do I anymore. My breath shook. You will be hunted, he said. Challenged. Resisted. So will you. Yes. A beat. Stay, he said. Not command. Not demand. Stay. I searched his face. The scars. The crown he carried whether he wanted it or not. The man who had not slept until a human bartender broke his face. I don't kneel, I said. Cale's mouth curved faintly. I know. I don't disappear into someone else's power. Good. I don't exist to soften your throne. Then stand beside it. The rune pulsed. Not with magic. With alignment. I stepped forward. Closed the last inch. My palms rested against his chest. And if I burn your world down? I asked. Cale's hand slid to my waist. Firm. Anchoring. Then we'll build something that can survive fire. I breathed him in. Rain. Stone. Heat. I'm not your weakness, I said. No, he agreed. You're my evolution. The kiss was not collision. Not hunger. It was convergence. Slow. Intentional. A joining of two forces that had never been meant to meet. The bond flared. Not claiming. Not consuming. Recognizing. When we separated, the room felt different. As if something foundational had shifted. Cale rested his forehead against mine. They are waiting, he said. For what? To see what you become. I exhaled. Then let's disappoint them. They didn't announce me as queen. They couldn't. The old word didn't fit. Queens were consorts. Decorations. Breeding points. They announced me as counter-sovereign Aria Vale. Independent. Unaligned. Recognized. The city reacted like a fault line had shifted. Some celebrated. Some raged. Some waited to see who would bleed first. I didn't move into the royal wing. I chose a level between his and the public towers. Open. Accessible. Uncontained. They hated that. Good. I rebuilt the velvet vortex into neutral ground. A place where humans, shifters, and unclassifieds could exist without hierarchy pressing their throats. Cale came often. Not as king. As himself. He slept. For the first time in 17 years. Sometimes with me. Sometimes just near me. The bond didn't demand. It stabilized. He stopped ruling from the throne every day. I started attending council sessions. Not to sit. To stand. And they learned quickly. I wasn't there to soften him. I was there to check him. To counter him. To remind him that power unanswered becomes rot. And he reminded me that fire without structure becomes ash. We fought. Often. Not in anger. In tension. In alignment. In the space where two wills refused to collapse into one another. The city learned. The packs learned. The council learned. The crown no longer rested on one head. It moved. It adapted. It bled when necessary. And I finally understood what they had tried to create decades ago. Not a hybrid. Not a weapon. A bridge. Something that could stand inside dominance and not disappear. Something that could meet a king without kneeling. One night, weeks later, Cale stood with me on the upper balcony. Black fall spread beneath us. Alive. Complicated. Unfinished. You know, he said quietly, the first man you broke ended up changing the entire structure of power. I snorted. I break things. You rebuild them, he corrected. I looked up at him. At the man who had gone to one knee in a chamber meant to erase me. Do you regret it? I asked. He didn't hesitate. No. Not even the headaches? His mouth curved. Worth it. I rested my head against his chest. Listen to the rhythm that now felt like home. I didn't come here to be chosen, I said softly. I know. I came here because you were in my way. His arm tightened around me. And now? I smiled faintly. Now, I said, you walk beside me. Above us, the city glowed. Not conquered. Not owned. Becoming. And for the first time in my life, so was I.